So today I wanted to talk to Scott, the library's executive director, a little bit about what happened last year, some highlights of 2018, a little bit of a look into what we're doing at the library in 2019, and also cover our upcoming trustee candidate election and how we're looking at our 2020 budget.
So in 2018, we had a fairly good year at the Albany Public Library. We loaned out about 640,000 books and materials. We saw around 831,000 visitors at our 7 locations. That's around a 4 to 5% increase. We provided 215,000 public computer and Wi-Fi sessions. Again, we saw growth there as well. We hosted about 58,000 people at programs, activities, and events. There was about a 2% growth there. And we hosted groups 8,940 times in our meeting rooms and study spaces, which is also around a 4 to 5% increase.
Is there any one of those particular statistics that you're more proud of or that says something about what today's library is?
The one place where we really grew was meeting rooms and study spaces, specifically study spaces. And what we're seeing is since we opened up study spaces and work rooms in the Washington Avenue branch, they've been in high demand. And this is a facility that did not have study rooms before. And we're also actually seeing spaces being used at our other locations. I think people have accepted the fact that libraries aren't as quiet as they used to be. And if they're looking for kind of that solitude and that quiet atmosphere, these are the spaces to do it.
So now we know the numbers. How about some of the programmatic and service highlights that we experienced at our branches this last year?
Well, in 2018, we expanded hours at 3 branches, Howe, Pine Hills, and Washington Avenue, adding about 6 hours to our weekly service schedule. And I want to give the staff credit. I always want to make us open every evening. However, the staff came back at 2 of the locations and said, listen, really what we want is daytime hours for people who are retiring in place and families. And from the amount of door traffic we got, I think they were correct in this. And then the other thing is Washington Avenue is back to being open 4 nights a week, which is something that we changed a few years ago, and we got a lot of pushback from the public about. A significant amount of public meetings happen at our Washington Avenue branch, and this made it so those rooms were available for extended hours.
I think that's definitely something the public has told us repeatedly that they're happy about and that they always want. It's something that I know you've been looking at for years, and it's great to be able to do that for everyone.
And then the other component is that our internet connection is about 5 times faster than it was the previous year. And I say that this year, the MVPs of 2018 is our IT staff because they worked really hard to upgrade our internet bandwidth. And all of the complaints that I used to get about computer speed have gone away. And I think the public is really happy. We received a 94% patron satisfaction rating in our last survey for library services, programs, and materials. We always want to see our patrons happy. I think that's a reflection of our great staff. And, we were named by the Times Union as one of the Capital Region's top workplaces. And even better, in 2018, we were the only library that received that award.
I think we're all proud of that, too. Another one of the things that we focused on last year was community partners, and they're really integral to a lot of the things that we're able to provide for our patrons in the wider community. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, the first partnership is with the APL Foundation, which is a separate 501c3 organization that really does some fundraising and grant writing to expand our programming. We have a program budget, but we always want to experiment and try something new. And they give us the ability to do that by raising funds. And what was so special about our relationship with them in 2018 was the fact that they secured funding through being CDPHP's charity of choice for one of our early literacy programs. And, that's special. That's a big recognition. That's a large regional event. So that was big for us, and I think that was big for the foundation. Of course, there's a relationship with CDTA. We sell Navigator passes at our branches, which generate revenue for us and also brings people in the door. And, the other thing that we're excited about is, we always do the annual story time on a bus, and they've been bringing bigger buses. They've been bringing their double buses to these story times because they're so popular. There's our relationship with the Albany County Action Partnership, which is the group that runs Head Starts throughout the region. And they now have 3 Head Start classes on the 3rd floor of 161 Washington Avenue. I think that's a nice way for the library to generate some new revenue. And simultaneously, we share the same mission. We looked, with the help of the Albany Promise, at the impact of our summer reading program, which is really changing our approach, not just to that program, but also literacy in general. CDPHP cycle, that's, if people are wondering where those green bikes disappear in the winter, it's actually in the basement of 161 Washington Avenue. That's where the repairs are done as well. That's a great partnership. It's a little bit of revenue for the library. And it's fun to see, and it's fun to be a part of it. And then, of course, Senior Services of Albany. There are several retirement communities throughout the city, and you will find the library there doing pop-ups and also doing book delivery.
Yeah, we definitely feel like we've been out in the community a lot more at festivals and events and things like that. So that's great to see. And every once in a while, people will see Bleecker the Owl, and he's always popular with kids especially. One of the things we spent a lot of time last year talking about was the North Albany branch. Can you update people on what's happening there?
Sure. So, as part of our strategic plan to meet community needs, we are affirming our commitment to provide library service in the North Albany neighborhood. We're excited because we're talking to community partners, and we actually believe not only are we dedicated to the space that we're currently in, no matter who the ownership is of that space, but we've talked with our partners, and we're going to expand the footprint slightly, but by doing so, we will now have our own program room, and we will at least have one or two study spaces. So, the library service that we were providing there was the basic and kind of old school. You pick up a book and you go, and maybe you can sit at a table. So I'm really excited to kind of see library service there grow, because, the North Albany neighborhood, that's one of the few resources they have left, especially if some of our partners there move on to other things. So we just want to tell that neighborhood, we went to them, we heard them, and we know how important that space is to them.
Right. I think that was an important process, and a lot of the things that we're hoping to get from the changes at that branch are directly related to what people asked us for. The programming room, like they would like to do the arts classes and the after school things for kids, and there just isn't space to do that. And now it sounds like we're going to be able to accommodate. So that's really great. Okay, so how about we move on to things that we're working on for this year or are coming this year?
So the first thing is, on January 1st, we went fine-free. I think it's really important for people to understand this was something that we looked at for a long time. My administrative team kind of put their heads together. We looked at a lot of the journal articles and the studies that are out there. And we also looked at our own My Card program, which had been a fine-free program going on for about 4 years for youth. And we realized through all kind of that study and analysis that going fine-free decreased barriers and increased access for our patrons. We waived old late fines because in reality, we weren't collecting a lot of them. And we knew that this was worthwhile to get more people in the door and more people borrowing material. We eliminated late fines on books, DVDs, CDs, and audiobooks. There are some things that still have fees, so you want to talk to the staff at the front desk. We also changed some loan rules, so high demand stuff may go into billing much sooner. And our reasoning for doing that is we learned that it's not the paying the late fine that got books back. It's the idea of not being able to use your library card. So we're excited. We think it's working. We've heard a lot of really great stories. We waived fines for a patron at Arbor Hill yesterday, and she wanted to hug the staff. It was definitely a feel-good situation. The other thing that we'll be doing this coming spring is we're partnering with the City of Albany to provide free Wi-Fi in 3 city parks: Washington Park Playhouse and Skate Park, Lincoln Park Pool, and Bleecker Swinburne Park Stadium. The library is a leading agency in bridging the digital divide in this community. When you see people waiting out front of the Washington Avenue branch, it is not for the latest James Patterson book. It's to get on those public computers. While people can look at Facebook and Twitter on their phones and do, basic internet, kind of the more fun things, when they're doing a job application, which is now, this is the primary way you do a job application, doing taxes, and soon doing census, providing your census information, you can't do that on a phone. You have to come to the library and do it on a computer and either sit at one of our desktops or go to the desk and grab one of our Chromebooks. So we know that's important. So we want to go beyond our 4 walls. We want to go and be 24/7. So we're looking at key community places where people are gathering and providing Wi-Fi there. And again, it's to bridge that digital divide.
And we're working with the city on that project?
Yes, it's a partnership with the city. And, we're not a part of the city. We're our own separate entity. We're a school district library, but that doesn't mean we don't partner with outside agencies, and it doesn't mean we don't work hand in hand with the city, the recreation department, the police department, when we think it's a value-added partnership and it's going to work for us.
So let's turn our attention now to the 2020 budget, which is kind of a little bit of a different situation than we've had for the last couple of years. So talk to me about that.
So on March 12th, the library board unanimously approved the 2020 library budget, which includes no tax levy increase. That's a 0% tax increase. That keeps the budget about the same and about $7.1 million. The big reason we can do this and operate this way without a tax increase is that we, working with the city treasurer and working with the local IDA, have secured pilot payments in lieu of taxes. And this is a significant income. It's almost $500,000. This isn't just a 1 year, 2 year shot. This is for several years going forward in the future. This gives us an ability to not raise taxes while also knowing that we do not have to dip into our savings to further operate the budget. There will be some increase to budget lines. We've added about $30,000 to the book budget in response to patron requests, because books are an important part of our mission. And our payroll costs are a bit higher. We've added some additional staff. Our libraries are used more so than they've ever been before, and in different ways that make it so that we need a little bit more staff in the buildings, especially at, some of our smaller branches. I share the story of I was at Howe the other day, and, there were 3 staff members there, and I counted just in the children's room alone 40 kids. And, so we're always looking not just at adding more librarians or library assistants, but programs like our community engagement clerk, having them there, because not only do we want to further our mission, but we want to make sure that our locations are safe and inviting.
So because there is no tax levy increase, there is no budget vote this year, but there is going to be a trustee election. We have 3 candidates or 3 seats that are up for election this year. Can you talk a little bit about the timeline for this?
Sure. So the election's on May 21st. The school district is kind enough to run our board elections and our budget elections for us. Potential candidates, if you're interested in running, you will want to get a trustee nomination packet, which is posted on our website, or you can get it physically at our circulation desks. The petitions are due to the City School District of Albany on May 1st, and the candidates will be announced the next day. And I believe the amount of signatures you need is around 65.
I think the minimum is 65.
So it's not that daunting of a task. Once we know who those candidates are, we're going to be hosting 2 Meet the Candidate nights. One on May 6th, which is a Monday, which is at the Pine Hills branch at 6:30. And then again that Wednesday on May 8th, the Washington Avenue branch at 6:30 as well. One of those will be taped and put on our YouTube channel. It is the same election and ballot as the school district vote. If you're looking for more information, you can always get it from our wonderful website at albanypubliclibrary.org. And I have been told there's been some polling place changes. So you want to go to albanyschools.org to look to see where your polling place is.
Great. And once we know the candidate names, we will put updated information on our website, and we'll also put the polling location information on the library's website as well once we confirm all that. Is there anything you want to leave people with?
Just know that this report's in different formats. You can go to the desk if you want to look at the numbers, you want to look at our budget. And we will be doing this at numerous neighborhood associations, at Cana. And it's, this is a great time of year for us. It's a great time of year for me. I get to go out and I get to brag about the great work that our staff does here. So it's a fun opportunity. And I think it's really important that we let the taxpayers and the renters of Albany know how their investment is doing, and how successful and how great of a library they have.
Thanks for talking more about this today.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I am here with Dr. Alice Green and Mia Nilo from the Center for Law and Justice, a civil rights organization founded by Dr. Green in 1985. The center provides community education on civil and criminal justice, legal guidance and advocacy, crisis intervention, and community planning and organizing around criminal justice, civil rights, and civil liberties issues of particular concern to poor communities and those of color. Dr. Green is the executive director for the center. She has a deep history of activism and organizing, including her work in community journalism, which we are talking about today. Mia Nilo is the executive administrator for the center and a lead organizer for the new scene. Dr. Green, how did the South End scene originate, and how did it change over the years?
Okay, well, we have to go a step backwards to understand what was going on in the South End at the time. This community was pretty much controlled politically and socially. There was a political machine in the city of Albany, and the mayor and others found it was a way to control people who really wanted to, at some point, change what was happening in Albany. They did want political and social change to happen. However, they felt controlled. And we're not communicating with each other because of that. There was fear that you would be put out of your housing, that you would lose your job if you talked at all about the political conditions, social conditions. So at Trinity Institution, we decided that we wanted people to have information, and that was the way to, quote, freedom from that control. And so we started doing a monthly from Trinity Institution on a mimeograph machine. And a lot of people won't remember what a mimeograph machine looks like, but it was not easy work. So we decided to start out by just informing people of the programs that were going on at Trinity, and then to slowly talk about other kinds of issues that were probably more political. So we did that. We did the mimeographing, and then we had to deliver the paper, which was a real problem. And a lot of the delivery was in Albany Housing Authority buildings, which were 10 or 12 stories high. And I think there was something like 400 apartments. So we had to go up to the 12th floor and work our way down and deliver it to everybody's door, whether they're there or not. So it started that way. Then, as I say, we slowly start talking about other issues besides programming. And then people were so excited about having this information that we decided we'd try to make it a little bit more sophisticated, to look like a newspaper, so hopefully more people would read it. So we did that, and that's how the South End scene started. And we started talking about different issues. And then after a while, other people got interested in the paper, and we were able to get volunteers to come in and help us do the paper, the writing, and all the preparations that were necessary, and the help with the delivery. It became so popular in the South End that Arbor Hill wanted to be included. They felt separated, and there was always this disconnect between Arbor Hill and the South End, the two major low-income communities that had a high population of people of color. And so when new people came in and we found that it was easier to do the paper, we actually were able to get some companies to sponsor some of it. The writing was most of the times free. We decided to branch out into the Arbor Hill. So the paper changed names. It became The Scene, so that everybody felt that they were involved with it. And there was a lot of pushback on the part of some people in the community, because a lot of the people in authority didn't like the idea of having a free paper. And so we had some battles around that. But it was very popular in the community. So people were reading it, and things were happening as a result. And so and new people took it over eventually when I left the Trinity Institution, and it became more polished, I guess, but the spirit was still there. And so it was published for a number of years. I don't even remember how many, but we were sad to see it, stopped at one point because they could no longer afford to do the production.
Thank you. What are your hopes for the new scene?
Well, that's interesting because we also did a couple other publications, but they were mostly focused on people who were incarcerated, trying to get information into the prisons for them. And so when the idea came about that, well, maybe we should, think about the scene again, the South End scene, because the other papers that had sort of spin-offs had died. And so we've been without a really local paper for a long time. So my hope is, and a lot of people have responded when they heard that we were thinking about doing this. We've got an incredible number of people who are so excited about it because they remember the old South End scene. So I'm hoping that people will again be involved. And I think it's really important now because we're now in a different age technology-wise. Some of us who are older don't always, get involved in social media. The newspapers are, sort of dying to some extent. And there's a lack of feeling of real community, I think, because a lot of people also, get their information from social media and TV, but it doesn't bring the community together the way the South End scene did. So I think people are sort of expecting, well, maybe this might help us talk to each other, instead of just relying upon your phone or your TV or social media, whatever it happens to be. That there was a sense of freedom that you could talk about issues and no one was going to control you. And I think people remember that. So I'm hoping, we can revive that spirit that the South End scene had.
Thank you very much. And now I'll turn to Mia Nilo. Mia, how did the new scene project come about?
So I joined the center team in August of 2018 and had seen some bits and bobs of this newspaper floating around the office. Then came the big library gala in October where Dr. Green was an honoree, where there was this feature and focus on her work on the South End scene. And through that, there had been talks about maybe revitalizing the South End scene. And, new as I was, I thought that maybe this would just be real small, a community newsletter that would pay homage to it. But as it developed further, it looked like it would be this project to actually reboot the newspaper at this community grassroots level.
And what partners are currently part of the new scene?
So out of these talks about revitalizing a community newspaper, the NAACP actually approached us with this Spectrum grant that they needed to use, and the paper just so happened to hit every point of that grant. So we went ahead and moved forward with that, and we brought in as many local organizations we could. Youth FX, that started out as a grant-funded organization, community-based as well, that also grew into its own standalone organization, is coming in to help us with some of these multimedia tangents into journalism, because even if journalism is now just more than print or even print online, it hits so many things, video and podcasts and also radio. So we're going to have the WCAA brought in, hopefully, to get the word out. In terms of bringing together community members, a village and the South End Community Collaborative are on board, and in terms of getting collaborators and people in the community on board, Wizards Wardrobe, Young Futures, Albany, Giffen Elementary, even the library are bringing in students who historically probably don't know about this newspaper, but they are going to be that bridge in the history of the scene and bringing it back for today.
And can you sort of summarize what the project that is currently happening is and what its goals are?
When this was first brought up from the NAACP, we were going to have, this community newspaper, and they really wanted this intergenerational participation and awareness of what's going on in these very specific neighborhoods, these underserved neighborhoods, these neighborhoods that may not get, as Dr. Green had said, they're not getting their news possibly from social media, or the Times-Union is not reaching them. It's a way to connect to those people, and it's going to be one of those things where it's a newspaper for the community and hopefully by the community. One thing that was built into the grant was a special focus towards addressing gun violence, especially after the spike in violence last summer that the community is still healing from. And our main focus, our big push, just like with the original South End scene, is that we're trying to give voice and greater visibility to these neighborhoods. Allow this to be an outlet to celebrate this community and the people in it. Let's highlight small businesses and growth, events and art, people's stories, and the future we're working towards.
How can people get involved?
Every Tuesday at the Howe branch, 3:30 to 5:30, you can come in, workshop with us. If you have that first idea, something you're excited about, come in, try and get that idea off the ground and published. If you've got an idea, if you're excited, we will help you get it out there. We're going to start having editorial meetings once a month if you'd like to be a part of the organizing aspect of it. The new scene 2019 is where you can find us on Facebook, and we have a sign-up sheet in terms of getting you onto our email list for information, and then we're going to have our website where you can go and see what's up.
I'd like to thank you both for speaking with me today and for all your important work in our community, and thank you for this exciting project.
Thank you.